Since the liberation of Jews from concentration camps in 1945, Jews around the world have stood by the mantra, never forget. In reality, what we have been hoping for is never again. Never again means that anti-Semitism would never again hover over the Jewish people in a manner that places them in the crosshairs of negative rhetoric, or even worse, violence like that of the Shoah. 1948 altered the course of the Jewish people, and the hope of never again felt real. Jews with a land to call home would have the strength of millions behind them. Then October 7th, 2023 occurred, and our world again turned upside down. Not since the Shoah has an attack of that magnitude been perpetrated against the Jewish people. Since October 7th, we have been asking ourselves, where do we go from here? If you recall, in the days after the attack, we came together right here at Schechter, right here in this room, our collective home, to find our strength within our kihila, our community. That strength can only be found by being together. And that is exactly what we are doing right here, right now, today. Coming together as a Schechter community to commemorate the Holocaust on Yom HaShoah. And my blessing for all of us is, yes, we should never forget, but hopefully never again.
Promises. What is a promise? Well, according to the dictionary, a promise is, and I quote, an assurance to someone that one will definitely do, give, or arrange something, undertake, or declare that something will happen. Together, let's revert back in time to when Hashem made a promise to Abraham. That promise was that as the first ever Jew, the original Abba of the Jewish people, that the Jews will be like Kikochavei Bashamayim, that they will be like the stars in the sky. That was it, translation over. Growing up, we were always taught that we will populate the world like no other people. The world will be a Jewish paradise, a Gan Eden, if you will. But how could that be? Before 1939, there were 16.6 million Jews in the world. Today, May 6, 2024, there are 15.7. 79 years later, and we are still 6% away from where we were prior to the Shoah. This is what happens when 3 full generations were murdered at the hands of the Nazis. Last year, I stood in front of you and literally in my own words, I spoke to you and said that my definition of stars in the sky changed. While we might not populate the world like the amount of stars in the sky, we will be the beacon of light in the nighttime sky, an example for the rest of the world. Our actions matter, meaning that if by example we do good in the world, mitzvah after mitzvah after mitzvah, that the rest of the world will see those examples and follow. I was so sure of this to the point where I was convinced that that was completely correct, and then October 7th happened, and that definition changed one more time. HaKochavim levad bashamayim. The stars are alone in the sky. Maybe Hashem was referring to the fact that we as Jews have to take care of our own issues first before we can be good for anyone else. Every morning, Dr. Kushner, Mrs. Mishkin, and Mrs. Kaplan repeat the line from Rabbi Heschel that says, every action counts and every word has power. Have we become numb to that? Are those just words that we have heard every day since kindergarten and become deaf to? Well, my dear children, it is time we live and breathe those words every day from here on out, because every action does count and every word does have power. We are gathered here today, as we are every year, to commemorate the greatest atrocity perpetrated against one specific group of people. This sadly marks the 79th year that the world offers deep thought about what the Nazis did to the Jewish people of Europe. This particular year, admittedly, I feel very conflicted. Each year, for as long as I can remember, whether at Schechter or other schools that I've taught at for nearly 3 decades, I've helped organize the Yom HaShoah Tekes, the ceremony. Much thought goes into what the international community is organizing in terms of its focus. Then there is a long look as to how that will work within our own school. In my lifetime, anti-Semitism has never reached the level that it did after October 7th. Anti-Semitism at that level was the narrative that was left to books, to movies, documentaries, in other words, left to the annals of history. Our post-October 7th world is not the same, nor should it be. College campuses resemble endless fields of Jewish hatred rather than the beacons of light for higher education. And I'm going to be transparent with all of you. As I have never been in my educational career, I felt directionless. October 7th, 2023 left me powerless, void of thought, lacking any organizational sense. In other words, directionless. Our students, the ones sitting behind us today, who through their vision raised me back up with a sense of hope and purpose, these young men and women, and I use those words specifically, have vision and passion about the Shoah and offer you a message of never again, because never again is now. They will offer you the only adjective that aptly describes the Jewish people and has rung true for thousands of years, and that is resiliency. Every night, stars shine with a resiliency no matter whether the sky is clouds that cloak our vision or it's crystal clear and every constellation is defined. So are we, as Hashem told Abraham, to be populated like the stars in the sky or that beacon of light to the world, or alone to deal with our internal issues? The answer is a simple yes to all the above, because all of the above in their own unique manner describe the ideal of the resiliency that is the Jewish spirit.
Before you this morning are young adults who felt that tug and pull of the Jewish spirit. Often, we have the inner struggle, that inner conversation that asks ourselves, what more can I do? The students on the stage answered that call and put together a tekes, a ceremony that is from their hearts and their souls. Today, you will hear how anti-Semitism showed itself in both hidden and overt ways, but never erased itself from the world. You are going to listen to original poetry and from the survivors and their survival from the Holocaust and October 7th. But mostly, you might see every presenter's mouth move with words that describe their feelings of Yom HaShoah, but really, it is their hearts and souls that release the words from their mouths. It is their hearts and souls, their love and neshama, that wrote the poems, helped them research, and compelled them to be a part of today's tekes.
Anti-Semitism, the persecution, alienation, and discrimination of Jews, has occurred since the beginning of our existence. Hundreds of separate religious ideologies, movements, and terrorists have tried to exterminate the Jews, yet we are still here. Nevertheless, our survival came at a great cost. We are one of the smallest religions in the world, yet one of the most misunderstood and disliked. Why? Philosophers and historians have been asking this question for a millennia. Just one act of anti-Semitism set an example for over 5,000 years, leading up to our main topic today, HaShoah. Ancient Egypt, and its story, which most of your families read at the Seder table, just a week ago. On our journey in the desert, we were attacked by an anti-Semitic clan, Amalek. Evidently, anti-Semitism existed before modern times. While ancient Egypt is just one example, the Babylonians, Seleucids, and Romans all attempted to wipe out the Jews. Clearly, they failed. In Roman times, the Jews were even blamed for the death of Jesus Christ. This was, and still is, an anti-Semitic lie that became a motive and justification for anti-Semitism over the course of 2,000 years. We have been falsely scapegoated for murders, arson, epidemics, and other world crises. Before 1948, the last time the Jewish people had the ability to speak freely and not vividly fear persecution was during the Judaic times. The Jews have been beaten down so much through history, and the Nazi Party, led by Hitler, had its hands wide open for another scapegoat. No other event or attempt of persecution on the Jews rivaled what the Nazis did. Germany was coming off the loss of World War I, an economic depression, and a societal restructuring. History repeated itself in horrifying fashion when Hitler and the Nazis came along and blamed the Jews for all of their problems. Thus, the anti-Semitism the world threw at the Jews before the Holocaust nevertheless set the stage for the events discussed in the following.
During the Holocaust, thousands of pieces of art were created by people suffering from the unspeakable conditions they faced in concentration camps. However, the butterfly was a recurring theme in art from camps across Europe, as it was used as a symbol of freedom and hope. This painting, created in a concentration camp in southern France, was a collaboration between two artists, Karl Robert Bodeck and Kurt Conrad Loewe. The two men often collaborated on art pieces during their time in the same concentration camp. This painting depicts a butterfly sitting on barbed wire, looking at the mountains at the Spanish border in the distance. Kurt Conrad Loewe was able to flee to Switzerland and was an active artist for the rest of his life. Karl Robert Bodeck was eventually taken to the Drancy camp and later to Auschwitz, where he was murdered. One of them got to become the role of the butterfly and one did not. Their painting is now part of the Yad Vashem art collection in Jerusalem.
Butterflies carved into walls by children. Another instance of butterfly art from the Holocaust was described by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, a doctor widely known for her work on death and dying. She wrote in her book, The Wheel of Life, a memoir of living and dying, about her journey to the site of the Majdanek concentration camp in Poland after World War II. She visited the children's barracks and saw hundreds of butterflies carved into the walls. Spellbound by the sight of these butterflies, she wondered what they meant. 25 years later, after listening to hundreds of terminally ill patients, she finally realized that the prisoners in the camps must have known that they were going to die. An excerpt from her book reads, They knew that they soon would become butterflies. Once dead, they would be out of that hellish place, not tortured anymore, not separated from their families, not sent to gas chambers. None of this gruesome life mattered anymore. Soon they would leave their bodies the way a butterfly leaves its cocoon.
The Butterfly, poem written by Pavel Friedman. The last, the very last, so richly, brightly, dazzlingly yellow. Perhaps if the sun's tears would sing against a white stone. Such a yellow is carried lightly way up high. It went away, I'm sure, because it wished to kiss the world goodbye. For 7 weeks I've lived in here, penned up inside this ghetto. But I have found my people here. The dandelions call to me, and the white chestnut candles in the court. Only I never saw another butterfly. That butterfly was the last one. Butterflies don't live in here, in the ghetto.
Children are unlimited, ready to surprise.
were originally written by people during the Holocaust. Blackout poetry takes the words in a poem and blacks out most of the words until the most impactful and important parts stand out. Ellie Noah and I took these poems and used this type of poetry to highlight the impactful parts of each of these poems.
Do not stand at my grave and weep by Mary Elizabeth Fry. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die.
I'm winds, diamond, sunlight. I'm autumn rain. I'm swift, quiet, soft. I did not die.
Holocaust by Barbara Sonek. We played, we laughed, we were loved. We were ripped from the arms of our parents and thrown into the fire. We were nothing more than children. We had a future. We were going to be doctors, lawyers, rabbis, wives, teachers, mothers. We had dreams. Then we had no hope. We were taken away in the dead of night, like cattle in cars, no air to breathe. Smothering, crying, starving, dying, separated from the world to be no more. From the ashes, hear our plea. This atrocity to mankind cannot happen again. Remember us, for we were the children, whose dreams and lives were stolen away.
Played, laughed, loved, ripped from our parents, into the fire, nothing, children, had future, doctors, rabbis, mothers, dreams, hope, taken away, cattle, no air, crying, dying, separated, no more, ashes, atrocity, not again, us, the children, dreams and lives, stolen.
Fear by Eva Pekova. Today the ghetto knows a different fear. Close in its grip, death wields an icy sight. An evil sickness spreads a terror in its wake. The victims of its shadow weep and writhe. Today a father's heartbeat tells his fright, and mothers bend their heads into their hands. Now children choke and die with typhus here. A bitter tax is taken from their bands. My heart still beats inside my breast, while friends depart for other worlds. Perhaps it's better, who can say, than watching this to die today? No, no, my God, we want to live, not watch our numbers melt away. We want to have a better world. We want to work. We must not die.
Fear, death, icy, evil, terror, victims weep, father's heartbeat, mother's bend. Children die, taken, heartbeats, friends depart. It's better to die today. God, live, numbers, want better world, work, not die.
In order to best comprehend the harrowing effects of the Holocaust, we read an excerpt from Elie Wiesel's autobiography, Night, about his journey fighting for his life in Auschwitz-Birkenau. His famous Never Shall I Forget passage conveys the trauma and hardships during the Holocaust. Recently, these traumatic experiences have been reflected on during the acts of October 7th. Wiesel's poem is easier to understand now more than ever. He is the link between his experiences and the current ongoing anti-Semitism. Never forget. Never shall I forget that night, the first night in camp that turned my life into one long night, 7 times sealed.
לעולם לא אשכח את הלילה ההוא, הלילה הראשון במחנה, שהפך את חיי ללילה אחד ארוך, 7 פעמים פרטים.
Never shall I forget that smoke.
לעולם לא אשכח את האשן הזה.
Never shall I forget the small faces of the children whose bodies I saw transformed into smoke under a silent sky.
לעולם לא אשכח את פניהם הקטנות של הילדים, שראיתי את גופם הופך לאשן תחת שמיים דוממים.
Never shall I forget those flames that consumed my faith forever.
לעולם לא אשכח את הלהבות האלה שכילו את אמונתי לנצח.
Never shall I forget the nocturnal silence that deprived me for all eternity of the desire to live.
לעולם לא אשכח את השקט הלילי ששלל ממני לנצח נצחים את הרצון לחיות.
Never shall I forget those moments that murdered my God and my soul and turned my dreams to ashes.
לעולם לא אשכח את הרגעים האלה שרצחו את אלוקים שלי ואת נשמתי והפכו את החלומות שלי לאבן.
Never shall I forget those things, even were I condemned to live as long as God himself.
לעולם לא אשכח את הדברים האלה, אפילו אם נשאר עליי לחיות כל עוד אלוקים עצמו.
Never.
לעולם לא.
Today we commemorate the Holocaust, the genocide of the Jewish people. It happened in 1939 to 1945. In that time, 6 million Jews were killed, of which 1.5 million were children. There were fewer people that survived than killed. Only 3.5 million survived. Jews fought for their lives for many years, and many ended up with nowhere to go. Many different religions and groups of people were attacked by the Nazis, a German political party, in Germany, and were tortured and murdered in concentration camps. The Holocaust was a terrible thing that happened, and it should never happen again. After World War II, many Jewish survivors of the Holocaust moved to Israel and the safety of a Jewish homeland. Here, they started their lives over by founding kibbutzim, moshavim, and other cities. That inspired international Jewry to help many other Jews around the world to find their way, to make Aliyah, and to move to Israel. And here are a few of those efforts. Operation Moses took place in 1984, where 8,000 Jews were saved from Sudan. Operation Moses saved Jews from a civil war that happened in Sudan, which evacuated many Jews in Ethiopia. Next, Operation Solomon was in 1991, and 15,000 Jews were saved from Sudan. Some people might think that that is a lot of Jewish people that were saved, and it's better than none. Even though thousands of Jews were saved from Sudan, only 15.7 million Jews currently stand in the world, and it's less than 1% of the Earth's population. October 7th was one of the most recent attacks on Jewish people. At least 1,200 Jews were killed in the attack. Some people who survived the Holocaust live in Israel currently. Sadly, that means they were in Israel during the October 7th attack. Specifically, these 7 Holocaust survivors lived in Israel during the attack. These 7 people were either killed, injured, or taken captive by Hamas. The goal of all these attacks was that so that the Jewish population would be gone and forgotten. But through everything the generations of Jews have gone through, we keep fighting, we don't give up, we make sure that Judaism stays alive.
Throughout history, Jews have been murdered and chased out of their homes. The Holocaust was the biggest mass murder of Jews, but on October 7th, a terrorist group called Hamas attacked Israel in the deadliest attack on Jews since the Holocaust. Hamas, the terrorist group, sent thousands of missiles and rockets to overwhelm the Iron Dome. Then thousands of terrorists crossed into Israel to continue to attack and kill. They slaughtered over 1,160 people, including Holocaust survivors who were living in Israel. They left thousands of people injured, and they are currently holding hostages in Gaza. For the last 6 months, Israel has been trying to free the hostages and eliminate Hamas.
This is Moshe Ridler, who was born in Romania in 1931. Moshe was a Holocaust survivor who unfortunately died during the attack of October 7th, and he was 91 years old. When Moshe was just 9 years he lived in a kibbutz in Israel and was the oldest resident living there. In his kibbutz, he was known for his daily walks to the post office or the local market, kindly greeting everyone he sees along the way, and always having a smile on his face. He loved to dance and travel abroad, even as he aged. His love for his family, for life. He continued to give us strength even after he surpassed age 90, quoted one of his grandsons, Amir Kessler. Heroic and strong and beloved grandfather was murdered. I don't even have words to describe what a special man he was, how much he meant to me, and how much I am me because of him, quoted his other grandson, Moshe Ridler. We should never forget the horrific story of Moshe and all the other Holocaust survivors that suffered or got killed on October 7th.
זהו משה רידלר, שנולד ברומניה בשנת 1931. משה היה ניצול שואה שנפטר למרבה הצער בפיגוע ב-7 באוקטובר והוא בן 91. כשמשה היה בן 9 בלבד, הוא ומשפחתו נשלחו למחנה ריכוז והוא הצליח להימלט ממנו בהצלחה בגיל 11. הוא התגורר בקיבוץ בישראל והיה התושב הוותיק ביותר שהתגורר בו. בקיבוצו הוא היה ידוע בהליכותיו היומיות לדואר או לשוק המקומי, בערך בחביבות את כל מי שראה בדרך ותמיד היה חיוך על פניו. הוא אהב לרקוד ולטייל בחו"ל, גם כשהזדקן אהבתו למשפחתו לחיים. הוא המשיך לתת לנו כוח רב גם אחרי שעשה זאת.
A survivor of the Holocaust and the October 7th attack on Israel. During the Holocaust, he was 4 years of age and 10 at the conclusion of the war. He remembers a lot of it. When the war ended, he suffered from PTSD. With that being said, he explains that when Hamas attacked Israel, it was almost scarier for him. More than 100 of his friends and neighbors were killed or taken as hostages to Gaza. 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust, and he was reminded of the fear and the trauma he faced as a young boy. Now, after experiencing it all, he is still here to this day and went to speak at the exhibition called Humans of the Holocaust. He says, we have to remember what happened at the Holocaust, and we have to understand what are the dangers of anti-Semitism and blind hatred. And we won't push back against anti-Semitism. History might repeat itself. And now an original poem by Hannah Landon.
Freedom. Sometimes I think of freedom. One day they will open the gates and we will walk out of the camp. The sun will shine on our gray faces and the sky will be blue. We will smile and laugh and cry. Then they will take us and we will be scared, but we will be safe. We will be reunited with family. We will go to the new Jewish state, Israel. The dark clouds will clear and the rain will dry. God will lift us up. He is smiling down on us. We were stripped of our happiness, from our families, from everything. But now we are free. It's only going to get better. There is a way out. Sometimes I think of freedom. One day they will tell us, come, we're taking you for a shower. Although some know this is no ordinary shower. They will strip us of our clothes and we will smile, thinking we are being cleaned, walking towards the showers. Some scared, but some knew better. This was the end. Death is scary, but not anymore. Not for me. Now it is a relief, knowing that death is coming. The clouds will cover the sky. Raindrops like tears will come down, like God crying down on us, praying for us. But why would God do this to us? We were stripped of our happiness, from our families, from everything. And now we are walking straight into our death. And it's only going to get worse. Death is the only way out.
We light this candle to rekindle God's flame, to shine His light upon the world once again, to sanctify the memories of the millions of souls, to honor their prayers and all their lost souls. We bless their existence by being alive to light this yellow candle as proof we survived.
I light this first candle for the Shoah to honor those who lost their lives in the anti-Semitism before, during, and after the Holocaust.
I light this candle of hope that the world community will find ways to intervene in situations where ethnic or economic tensions are threatening to turn murderous. May there be no more days of destruction, days of catastrophe anywhere in the world. Never again.
I light this candle today as we remember and because so many families were completely wiped out, leaving no one to say Kaddish in honor of the parents, children, relatives, and dear friends after they died.
I light this candle in memory of Holocaust survivor Moshe Ridler, who lost his life during the October 7th attack on Israel.
I light this candle to show Holocaust deniers that their efforts are wasted words and show that we know what really happened.
I light this candle in honor of all the survivors still sharing their stories of horror and fright. It is through their stories that we pass along their knowledge to the world framed with the famous words, "We will never forget." In commemoration of the Shoah, please observe this moment of silence. Please rise.
Please remain standing for the El Malei Rachamim, a prayer in memory of those who perished in the Shoah. El Malei Rachamim, shochen b'amromim, hamsei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר כי המסירים את נשמות כל אחינו בני ישראל, אנשים, נשים וטף שנשבחו ושנחנקו ושנשרפו ושנהרגו ושהלכו לעולמם. בגן עדן תהיה מנוחתם. אנא בעל הרחמים, אסירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור חיים את נשמותיהם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו ושלום על פיזורי משכבותיהם, ונאמר אמן. Please recite the mourner's Kaddish with me. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה. בעלמא יברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתעשה. יתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי בקדושה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן ועלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
You may be seated.
Our duty as Jews is to never forget the Holocaust, to pass on the story midol adol from generation to generation. In the words of Elie Wiesel, to forget the dead would be akin to killing them a second time. To forget the Holocaust would be akin to allowing a second one. This is why we say, never forget. Never forget the atrocities committed against our families. Never forget the cruelties of the concentration camps. Never forget the stories of our survivors, both those who are still alive and those who have passed away since the Holocaust. Never forget the 6 million of us who were murdered at the hands of the Nazis. Never forget to ensure that it never happens again. This is more important now than at any time since the establishment of the State of Israel. With a war raging in Gaza, with 130 hostages imprisoned in underground tunnels, at least 30 of whom have died. This war is the epitome of never forget. We are not only fighting to protect our only Jewish state, we are fighting for the souls of Jews everywhere, and we will make sure that forever and always, we will never forget.
I would like to thank all of our students who led us today in a very beautiful and meaningful tekas, and I would like to thank all of you who really knew how to bring yourself today. There's a different way to be in different moments, and I'm very proud of our community, of our kehillah, of all of our students right now, because you understood what today was about. And I'm going to ask that you maintain that understanding as I dismiss you, because I'd like us to remain in silence. We're going to dismiss by grade. I'm going to ask everyone else who's waiting to just sit, absorb what you've heard today, and then when it is your time, everyone is going to leave out that door so that you can look at the gallery, and you're going to look quickly and move on because there'll be another grade right behind you. So I'm going to, at this point, dismiss Kita Gimel, 3rd grade. Please stand up silently. Everyone else, please remain in silence.